Just imagine a movie where the very first scene strips away your childhood nostalgia by permanently erasing Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man universe from existence. Think about a storyline where Steve Rogers, the ultimate symbol of righteousness, makes one seemingly innocent mistake that inadvertently dooms the entire multiverse. Picture a ruthless villain who brutally murders Loki, ripping away his godlike temporal powers to fuel his terrifying agenda. A story so tragic and utterly crazy that it makes every preceding Marvel film feel like a lighthearted warm-up. And the biggest bombshell of all is that casting Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom is not just some desperate nostalgic cash grab. It is anchored by a profoundly deep, emotionally shattering reason that will completely recontextualize everything we know about the cinematic universe. I have been piecing together these breadcrumbs into a complete creative speculation, and I need to share exactly how this masterpiece of despair could unfold on the big screen, layering every shocking twist until the multiverse collapses. The film opens with a cold, terrifying visual of a massive incursion, a catastrophic event where two distinct universes are being magnetically drawn toward each other, guaranteeing absolute annihilation. We are immediately dropped into the familiar, comforting streets of Tobey Maguire's Earth, a New York City we have cherished for 2 decades. However, the streets are in absolute chaos. But our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man isn't fighting the Green Goblin. Instead, he is locked in a desperate death match against Deadpool and Wolverine. It sounds insane, but the tragic reality is that the X-Men, desperate to save their own dying reality, have made a morally bankrupt sacrifice. They have deployed a planet-killing device to Tobey's Earth to wipe it out before the collision destroys them both. We watch in sheer, unadulterated horror as Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, carrying the heavy weight of a billion sins, actively triggers the destructive device. In a blinding, unforgiving flash of light, that entire universe, taking our beloved Spider-Man and even that variant of Wolverine with it, is instantly vaporized into cosmic dust. Marvel uses this devastating opening sequence to establish a chilling new rule for this saga. Absolutely no one is safe from the impending doom. After that shocking eradication, the narrative yanks us back in time to the somber, rain-soaked moments following the climax of Avengers Endgame, specifically right around Tony Stark's funeral. But this time, the camera focuses entirely on Steve Rogers. We follow Captain America on his supposedly solitary mission to return the Infinity Stones to their rightful timelines. We all know the story, but now we get to see the exact moment everything diverges. Instead of coming back to the present day, Steve makes that fateful, deeply human decision to stay in the past with Peggy Carter. He carves out a quiet, beautiful life in an alternate timeline, building a family, including a son they name Jim. For nearly 10 years, Steve lives in absolute peace. This idyllic life is violently interrupted by the frantic arrival of Loki from before he took his place at the Multiverse tree. Loki bursts in with a dire warning. The Time Variance Authority is on its way to prune this timeline because Steve's existence here has created a massive anomaly. To save them, Loki magically shifts Steve and his family into the Fantastic Four's universe, assuring them they will be safe under the radar. We are then introduced to the chilling, majestic presence of Dr. Doom, who makes an imposing entrance at the home of Sue Storm and Franklin Richards in this new universe. The tension is palpable when Reed Richards finally arrives to confront the armored tyrant. But Doom hasn't come for a petty skirmish. He removes his metallic mask and explains with grave urgency that massive, cascading incursions are rapidly wiping out realities at an alarming rate, and their specific universe is the next scheduled target for complete annihilation. Doom claims he has devised a brilliant, foolproof plan to save their world and halt the incursions permanently, but he insists he cannot execute it alone. He tells Reed that they must travel to Earth 616, the main Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline, to enlist the raw power and resources of the Avengers. Reed, always the pragmatist, decides to hear him out. But before they can formulate a proper strategy to cross the multiverse, Reed conducts a planetary scan to assess the structural integrity of their Earth. The diagnostic scan pings a massive, unnatural, multiversal energy signature radiating from a quiet suburban neighborhood. When Reed and Doom investigate, they stumble upon Steve Rogers and his family. The devastating truth drops like an anvil in that quiet suburban home. Steve's unnatural migration into this universe, carrying the heavy temporal weight of a man living entirely out of bounds, is the exact anchor drawing the next deadly incursion toward them. The sheer guilt washes over Steve as he realizes his deeply personal desire for a happy ending has inadvertently doomed billions of innocent lives. Racked with intense remorse, Steve immediately volunteers to do whatever it takes to fix his monumental mistake. He agrees to accompany Reed and Doom to Earth 616 to serve as the ultimate bridge of trust, knowing the Avengers would never blindly follow Dr. Doom without Captain America's strict endorsement. The trio successfully crosses over into the main timeline, where Steve reunites with his old comrades. Seeing Captain America alive and passionately vouching for these interdimensional strangers is enough to convince the skeptical heroes. Steve explains the cosmic stakes, and together, the newly reformed Avengers set their sights on finding more allies. They decide to traverse the multiverse to recruit the mutant heroes from the war-torn universe of the X-Men. Completely unaware that they are walking straight into a catastrophic misunderstanding that will cost them dearly. The recruitment mission to the X-Men's universe goes horribly wrong almost the second they arrive. This specific variant of the mutant team has already survived multiple near-miss incursions, watching neighboring realities burn to ash, and their collective trust in outsiders is absolutely non-existent. When they see a heavily armed coalition of Avengers standing alongside Dr. Doom, a known multiversal threat, they jump to the terrifying conclusion that this invading force has come to destroy their world, just like Wolverine did to Tobey's Earth. What follows is a visually spectacular, emotionally gut-wrenching, cinematic battle royale. The Avengers and Fantastic Four are forced into a massive, desperate war against the X-Men, hero fighting hero in a deeply tragic misunderstanding. It is only when both sides are heavily battered, bleeding, and utterly exhausted that Steve manages to miraculously de-escalate the senseless conflict. In the newfound quiet, Reed and Doom finally unveil their grand design. They have engineered schematics for colossal planetary-scale cannons. When constructed and activated on every remaining Earth, these cannons are supposedly designed to fire a synchronized energy grid, creating a permanent, impenetrable multiversal barrier. Desperate for any glimmer of hope, the United Heroes split into factions to build these massive machines. While the exhausted heroes scatter across different realities to begin this monumental construction, a quieter, deeply emotional conversation takes place between Steve Rogers and Thor. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Steve casually mentions that the person who helped him escape the TVA's wrath all those years ago was none other than Loki. Thor freezes completely. The heavy grief he has carried since his brother's brutal death at the hands of Thanos suddenly warring with a desperate, impossible spark of hope. If there is a living Loki out there in the multiverse, Thor absolutely has to find him. Using a temporal contact card that Loki had slipped to Steve, the two original Avengers managed to open a doorway directly into the headquarters of the Time Variance Authority. Thor is practically shaking with anticipation, imagining the glorious reunion with his brother. But the moment they step through the glowing portal, that beautiful hope is violently extinguished. The once bustling halls of the TVA are completely silent, stained with a horrifying amount of blood. The bodies of agents and Minutemen are strewn everywhere in a gruesome display of absolute slaughter. Thor and Steve navigate the carnage until they reach the central chamber. In the dead center of the temporal loom chamber lies a sight that will haunt audiences forever. Loki, the god of mischief who had grown into the ultimate savior of the multiverse, lies dead on the cold floor. His chest has been brutally ripped open, his heart, the very core of his newfound multiversal magic, completely removed. And standing over the bleeding corpse, bathed in the eerie glow of the dying timelines, is Dr. Doom. The sheer shock of this moment paralyzes Thor, but Steve steps forward, demanding to know why Doom would commit such a vile atrocity while they are supposed to be saving reality together. This is when the terrifying, unvarnished truth finally comes out. Doom looks at them with absolute, chilling contempt and reveals that he never had any intention of stopping the incursions. The planetary cannons they tricked the desperate heroes into building are not protective barriers. They are massive, multiversal anchors designed to artificially accelerate the cosmic collisions. The entire mission was a brilliant, cruel distraction to keep the universe's greatest defenders busy, while Doom orchestrated the ultimate end of everything. Doom wants to watch every single universe collapse until there is nothing left. The motivation behind this apocalyptic hatred is rooted in a backstory so incredibly tragic it almost makes you pity the monster beneath the metal. Doom coldly explains that he was once the benevolent, brilliant ruler of a 31st century Latveria in his home universe. He had a beautiful wife, 2 loving children, and a prosperous kingdom. But when Steve Rogers selfishly decided to alter the past to stay with Peggy, the resulting temporal shockwave rippled violently through the multiverse, directly triggering an unavoidable incursion over Doom's reality. Desperate to save his people, Doom combined the highest peaks of science and the darkest depths of magic in a radical experiment to push the colliding universe away, but the experiment went catastrophically wrong. The resulting explosion didn't stop the incursion, it amplified the destruction. Doom was forced to watch in agonizing helplessness as his wife and children were incinerated right before his eyes. The same blast horribly scarred his face, forcing him to be forever entombed in his iconic cold armor just to survive. Driven completely insane by the unimaginable grief and constant physical pain, Doom concluded that the entire multiverse is inherently flawed and must be violently erased from existence. Doom's quest isn't just about grand cosmic recreation, it is deeply, violently personal. He looks directly at Steve Rogers, the very man whose simple, selfish desire for a quiet life cost Doom his entire universe and everything he ever loved. To inflict the exact same unimaginable emotional pain upon Captain America, Doom uses his newly acquired multiversal magic to reach across the void and brutally summon Steve's 10-year-old son, Jim, directly into the blood-stained TVA chamber. Before Steve can even scream in protest, before Thor can throw his mighty hammer, Doom ruthlessly executes the innocent child right in front of his father's eyes. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated darkness that shatters Steve Rogers completely. Thor, realizing that Doom now possesses the limitless temporal power stolen from Loki's heart, knows they cannot possibly win this fight here. In a desperate, split-second decision, Thor grabs a broken, catatonic Steve and uses the last of the TVA's failing technology to teleport them out of the chamber, barely escaping Doom's wrath. Thor desperately broadcasts a multiversal warning to the scattered factions of Avengers, Fantastic Four, and X-Men, exposing Doom's horrifying deception. The heroes realize they have built the engines of their destruction, dropping everything to attack Latveria. The united front of all the surviving heroes launches a massive, desperate invasion on Doom's heavily fortified stronghold in Latveria. It is undeniably the most epic, breathtaking scale battle ever put on a cinematic screen. Thor even manages to call upon the ancient spirits of his ancestors, begging Odin for aid, and a glorious, spectral army of Asgardian warriors descends from Valhalla to join the apocalyptic fray. The sky is filled with blinding lightning, magical blasts, and the brutal clash of vibranium against incredibly advanced Latverian tech. But even as this monumental war rages on the bloody ground, the terrifying reality of Doom's master plan begins to manifest in the heavens above. The final, unavoidable incursion has officially begun. The sky literally tears open like fragile paper, revealing massive alien planets hurtling toward them. The ground begins to fracture and sink into total oblivion. Gravity completely fails, and the very fabric of existence starts to unravel. We are forced to watch, helpless and devastated, as our favorite heroes are slowly consumed by the absolute destruction. The X-Men fight to their last breath, the Fantastic Four hold on to each other, the Avengers simply cease to exist. The multiverse is utterly wiped out, leaving only Dr. Doom. Having absorbed all of Loki's time-weaving abilities, Dr. Doom is the only entity powerful enough to survive the total collapse of reality. Floating in the empty void, he uses this godlike power to pull the shattered fragments of destroyed Earths together, stitching them into one massive patchwork planet called Battleworld. He resurrects the billions who died, but erases every single person's memory. Nobody remembers the multiverse or their past lives. They all wake up believing this strange planet is the only world that has ever existed, with God Emperor Dr. Doom ruling from his throne. This is exactly where this devastating movie ends, with the villain achieving total, absolute victory over everyone. Our beloved heroes are completely trapped in a fabricated illusion, entirely unaware of their tragic reality. But amidst the brainwashed masses, a tiny flicker of hope remains hidden in the shadows. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine secretly retain their memories thanks to the silent intervention of the Watcher, quietly setting up a desperate underground resistance for Secret Wars. Wow, I honestly get chills just thinking about the sheer emotional weight and cinematic scale of this storyline. Imagine standing at the edge of a precipice, looking out over a landscape that is simultaneously everything you have ever known and something entirely, terrifyingly new. That is the feeling I have had for the last few days, staring at these latest whispers emerging from the dark corners of the internet regarding Avengers Doomsday. Now, I know what you are thinking, and trust me, I am right there with you. We live in an era where AI-generated fabrications are as common as the morning sun, and half the leaks you see on your feed are just someone with a vivid imagination and a penchant for digital paint. But there is a pattern emerging here, a frequency in the noise that simply refuses to be ignored. When reliable voices, the kind who have been right about the industry for years, start painting the same haunting picture, you have to stop and pay attention. We are staring down the barrel of a massive franchise-altering pivot. And if even half of what is being suggested is true, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as we have understood it for the last decade and a half, is not just evolving, it is preparing for a funeral. The opening of this film is reportedly designed to be a gut punch that sets a tone we have never really seen in this universe before. Picture the absolute silence of the void, shattered by the weight of a singular, imposing figure. We are hearing rumors of a sequence where Victor Von Doom, in his first true moment of cinematic dominance, systematically dismantles the entire Council of Kangs. Think about that for a second. We spent years being told that Kang was the ultimate threat, the architect of multiversal chaos, only for Doom to turn that entire narrative into a footnote. There is a vision of him standing atop a literal mountain of fallen variants, not just as a conqueror, but as an executioner. He is not doing this for ego alone. The reports suggest he is driven by a cold, sharp grief, blaming the Kangs for the death of his own child and the reckless, unending fragmentation of the multiverse. It feels like a brilliant, if brutal, narrative sleight of hand. Marvel is effectively closing the book on the Kang saga, not with a whimper, but with a roar. And in doing so, they are handing the keys to the kingdom to a villain who treats gods like pests. It is a masterful way to establish his motivation. Doom is not just another bad guy looking to take over. He is a man who believes he is the only one capable of stitching reality back together. He looks at what the Avengers and the Kangs have done, this constant meddling, this eternal tug of war with time, and he sees it as a sickness. He wants to create a world where no one else can play with the fire that burnt his family, a perfect, singular world under his iron rule, and the implications of that are staggering. It sets us up for a film that feels less like a traditional superhero romp and more like a Greek tragedy written in the language of cosmic destruction. You can almost feel the tension in the scripts being described. If he is capable of wiping out an infinite army of time-traveling despots before the first act even hits its stride, what chance does a group of fractured, tired heroes have when he finally turns his gaze toward them? It is high-stakes storytelling at its most visceral, and honestly, it is the kind of massive, earth-shattering shift that this franchise has been starving for. Of course, the theater is not going to just be a dark, brooding spectacle of death. It is going to be packed with the kind of high-octane fan service that makes you want to stand up and cheer. We are hearing whispers of a grizzled, war-torn Steve Rogers returning, and not just the version we know, but a man carrying the emotional weight of an Infinity War-style loss, wielding a broken Mjolnir in a world that is clearly falling apart. Seeing him in that state, broken but defiant, would be a visual shorthand for everything we have lost along the way. And then there is the chemistry we have all been waiting for. The prospect of Spider-Man and Wolverine clashing, that inevitable classic rivalry that has defined pages of comics for decades, finally coming to life. They are saying Deadpool is right in the thick of it, acting as the wild card in a volatile mix of personalities. It is the kind of creative decision-making that acknowledges exactly why we fall in love with these characters in the first place. You don't need a perfectly pristine story if you can capture those lightning-in-a-bottle moments where icons collide in ways we never thought possible. But beneath the spectacle, there is this underlying question about the destination. Where do we go when the walls of reality actually start to cave in? The leaks talk about the creation of Battleworld, and the sheer audacity of that concept is almost overwhelming. We are hearing two distinct paths for survival. Either Ant-Man pulls off the impossible by ushering heroes into the safety of the quantum realm, or they find sanctuary within the terrifying, hollow confines of the void. The idea that Doom might be harvesting the void itself, fusing it with the reality-warping might of a child like Franklin Richards, is chilling. This is the moment where he stops being a man and becomes a deity. If he truly replaces the role of Loki not as a trickster but as a rigid, absolute arbiter of existence, we are looking at God Emperor Doom. That is the endgame. That is the moment where the rules of the game change forever, effectively deleting the TVA and the old timelines and placing everyone under a new, singular regime. It is the kind of ending that leaves an audience breathless, wondering if there is any way back. Then, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. The rumor that has been setting social media on fire, the hard reset. The idea that after Secret Wars, we might be looking at a total MCU reboot. It is a bold, controversial, and potentially dangerous play. The report suggests that the original Fox X-Men might be phased out to make room for a completely fresh start, which, if handled with care, could actually be a great way to integrate mutants into the fabric of a new world. But then there is the talk of recasting the cornerstones Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff. My gut tells me that is a gamble that could easily backfire. There is a deep foundational connection that audiences have to those actors and those specific iterations of these characters. To erase that history and hand the roles to someone else feels like ripping the heart out of the house to see if the foundation is still solid. I truly hope Marvel listens to the pulse of the fans on this one. You don't need to overwrite history to start a new chapter. You just need to honor the legacy while turning the page. Instead of a total purge, there is a much more compelling path forward, one that feels grounded in the best of comic book tradition. Why not lean into the terror of a character like Maestro Hulk? It introduces a threat that feels personal, a perversion of a hero we love, which hits so much harder than another nameless alien army. The focus should be shifting toward the characters who have been waiting in the wings, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, a truly menacing Black Panther, and a grounded, gritty Blade. These are the characters that can carry the weight of a new generation. Let the legacy of the Avengers stay where it is, preserved as the legends they are, while we explore new, darker, and more intimate stories elsewhere. I have been saying for a while now that the street-level side of things is where the real potential lies. Imagine a Marvel Knights banner that brings together Daredevil, the Punisher, Luke Cage, and Ghost Rider in a tone that isn't afraid to get its hands dirty. That is where you find the nuance, the grit, and the maturity that the current landscape is begging for. If they follow that trajectory, they can set the stage for something truly epic. Think about a future where the dust has settled on the reboot, and we see an Illuminati formed not by accident, but by necessity. Reed Richards, Doctor Strange, Namor, the heavy hitters coming together to make the hard choices that no one else can handle. That is the perfect vehicle to bring us the big, iconic storylines we have been waiting for, like a proper civil war or a true-to-form secret invasion. It allows the universe to breathe, to grow, and to evolve without feeling like it is constantly trying to top the last explosion. It turns the franchise into something that isn't just about winning a battle, but about building a cohesive, layered world that can survive the death of an entire reality. That is the kind of long-term vision that made the MCU a phenomenon in the first place, and it's exactly how they can regain that sense of wonder. Ultimately, these leaks, whether they turn out to be gospel or just shadow play, reflect our collective desire for something fresh. We have been on this ride for a long time, and while the nostalgia is powerful, there is a hunger for a new beginning that feels earned, not forced. If Dr. Doom is the catalyst for this change, if he is the flame that burns down the old house so that something stronger can be built in its place, then maybe, just maybe, the chaos is worth it. It is about balancing the weight of the past with the promise of the future. Marvel is at a crossroads, and every choice they make in these coming films is going to define the next decade of blockbuster cinema. It is a thrilling time to be a fan, even if it is a little scary to think about what might be left behind. We are all waiting to see if they stick the landing or if the leap into the unknown is just a little too far. At the end of the day, it's all about the stories we share and the characters who have walked with us through our own lives. Whether or not these rumors hold weight, they get us talking, they get us imagining, and they keep the fire of our fandom burning. I would love to know what you think about all of this. Does the idea of a total reboot scare you? Or are you ready for a clean slate? Do you think Doom is the villain we need to finally shake things up? Or is this all just building toward another massive misdirection? Let's keep the conversation going in the comments below. I'm Liam Harrison from MovieCast, and I really appreciate you hanging out with me to break down these wild theories today. If you enjoyed the deep dive into what might be coming, please consider hitting that like button, sharing this with your fellow Marvel theorists, and subscribing so you don't miss our next breakdown. Thank you for staying connected, and I'll see you in the next one. There is a strange feeling surrounding Marvel right now, and I think every longtime fan can feel it. For years, the Marvel Cinematic Universe felt unstoppable. Every new release felt like another piece of a giant puzzle, and audiences around the world waited eagerly to see where the story was heading next. But after Avengers Endgame, something changed. The excitement never completely disappeared, yet it no longer felt the same. Many fans began asking a question that once seemed impossible. Was the golden age of superhero movies finally coming to an end? And honestly, for a while, it looked like Marvel itself wasn't sure how to answer that question. But now everything seems to be pointing toward one project: Avengers. Doomsday is not being treated like just another Marvel movie. It feels like a turning point, a moment that could redefine the future of the entire franchise. The pressure on this film is enormous because audiences are not simply asking for another blockbuster. They want that feeling back. They want the anticipation, the mystery, the emotion, and the sense that every character is part of something much bigger. And when I look at all the clues surrounding Avengers Doomsday, I genuinely believe Marvel knows exactly what is at stake. This movie may not just continue the story. It may be the beginning of Marvel's biggest transformation since Iron Man first flew across our screens. To understand why this movie matters so much, we have to look at how Marvel reached this point in the first place. It is easy to forget that there was a time when Marvel was not the giant entertainment empire we know today. Back in the 1990s, Marvel was struggling financially and was forced to license many of its most valuable characters to different studios. Spider-Man ended up elsewhere. The X-Men were controlled by another company. The Fantastic Four followed a similar path. Marvel had created some of the most iconic heroes in comic book history, yet it did not fully control them. Then came a gamble that changed everything. In 2008, Iron Man arrived, and what happened afterward completely altered Hollywood. Instead of creating isolated superhero films, Marvel began building a connected universe. Every movie mattered. Every character could influence another story. Every post-credit scene hinted at a future event. As fans, we were not just watching individual adventures. We were witnessing chapters of an enormous saga unfolding in real time. The journey eventually led to Avengers Endgame, a cinematic event that felt almost impossible in scale. Years of storytelling converged into one emotional conclusion. The battle against Thanos became more than a superhero fight. It became the payoff to a decade of investment, emotion, and patience. The problem was that Endgame succeeded almost too well. How do you follow a story that many people considered the perfect ending? That challenge became Marvel's greatest obstacle. During the Infinity Saga, there was always a clear direction. Whether audiences realized it or not, every major event was slowly moving toward Thanos. The clues were planted carefully. The tension increased with every phase. The destination was visible. But after Tony Stark's sacrifice, the path became harder to see. New heroes were introduced. Multiple storylines emerged simultaneously. The multiverse opened endless possibilities, but it also created confusion. Some projects connected strongly with audiences, while others struggled to leave a lasting impact. Then, the global pandemic disrupted schedules, causing delays and forcing changes to long-term plans. At the same time, numerous streaming series expanded the universe even further. For dedicated fans, following every story was exciting. For casual viewers, it became overwhelming. Sometimes it felt as though Marvel was expanding faster than it could organize itself. And that is exactly why Avengers Doomsday feels different. Everything we are hearing suggests that this film is designed to restore focus. Instead of creating more branches, it may finally pull those scattered storylines back together into one central narrative. One of the strongest signs of that strategy is the talent Marvel is bringing back. When I first heard that Robert Downey Jr. would return in a completely unexpected role, I immediately understood the message Marvel was sending. This is not simple nostalgia. This is symbolic. Robert Downey Jr. helped launch the MCU. His performance as Tony Stark became the foundation upon which everything else was built. Bringing him back in a new form instantly creates curiosity and emotional investment. Fans who grew up with Iron Man cannot ignore that kind of development. Then there is Chris Hemsworth returning as Thor, one of the last remaining pillars from the original era. His presence helps connect the past and the future. But perhaps the most important return of all is the comeback of the Russo brothers. These directors understand large-scale storytelling better than almost anyone in Marvel history. They successfully balanced dozens of characters while maintaining emotional stakes in Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. Their return suggests that Marvel wants structure, discipline, and purpose. It feels as if the studio has recognized that audiences are not simply craving bigger action scenes, they are craving meaningful storytelling. And if Avengers Doomsday truly becomes the centerpiece of Marvel's recovery, the Russo brothers may be the architects responsible for making that happen. But the biggest clue about Marvel's future might not be found in the Avengers at all. It might be hidden within the arrival of mutants. For years, fans dreamed about seeing the X-Men become part of the MCU. These characters represent some of the richest storytelling opportunities in comic book history. Unlike many superhero teams, the X-Men have always carried deeper themes involving fear, identity, prejudice, and belonging. Their stories feel personal even when the stakes are global. Now imagine those themes entering an MCU that is already dealing with fractured realities and collapsing universes. Suddenly, the possibilities become enormous. I think Marvel understands that the X-Men are not just additional characters, they are the next foundation. The Avengers carried the franchise for over a decade, but every universe eventually needs fresh perspectives. Mutants bring new conflicts, new relationships, and entirely new emotional dynamics. More importantly, they introduce unpredictability. Fans already know many Avengers stories. The X-Men allow Marvel to surprise audiences again. If Avengers Doomsday serves as the bridge between the old era and the mutant era, then this movie may be remembered as the exact point where the MCU changed direction forever. This becomes even more fascinating when we consider what is waiting on the horizon. Avengers Secret Wars is widely expected to be one of the largest comic book adaptations ever attempted. The original Secret Wars concept revolves around worlds colliding, realities merging, and heroes from different universes being forced together. If Marvel follows even part of that blueprint, then Avengers Doomsday may function as the spark that ignites the entire catastrophe. Think about the multiverse for a moment. Every alternate reality represents another possibility, another version of history, another version of our heroes. But infinite possibilities also create instability. What happens when too many realities begin occupying the same space? What happens when the walls separating universes start breaking down? Marvel has already introduced incursions, dangerous events where universes collide and threaten mutual destruction. My theory is that Avengers Doomsday will push these incursions to unprecedented levels. Instead of treating them as background concepts, the film may reveal that the multiverse is approaching total collapse. Every hero, every timeline, and every reality could be moving toward a single, unavoidable crisis. That would perfectly explain why Marvel is gathering so many important characters at once. They are not preparing for another battle. They are preparing for survival itself. And this is where Dr. Doom enters the conversation. If the rumors and reports surrounding Avengers Doomsday are even partially accurate, Doom could become the figure that reshapes the MCU. What makes Doom different from previous villains is that he is not driven solely by destruction. He is driven by control. He believes he knows what is best for reality. That belief makes him dangerous because he often sees himself as a savior rather than a conqueror. Imagine a universe collapsing under the weight of endless incursions. Imagine billions of lives at risk across countless realities. Now imagine one brilliant individual deciding that the only solution is to seize power and rebuild existence according to his own vision. Suddenly, Doom becomes more than a villain. He becomes a terrifying answer to a problem nobody else can solve. This is why Robert Downey Jr.'s involvement becomes so intriguing. Marvel may intentionally be creating emotional parallels between Tony Stark and Doom. One sacrificed everything to save existence. The other may decide that saving existence requires absolute authority. The contrast could create some of the most compelling drama the MCU has ever explored. And honestly, that possibility alone makes Avengers Doomsday feel incredibly exciting. Then we arrive at one of the most unexpected developments in this entire conversation: Gambit. For years, Channing Tatum fought to bring this character to life. Planned projects collapsed. Studio mergers changed priorities. The dream repeatedly seemed impossible. Yet somehow, fate brought Gambit back into the spotlight through Deadpool and Wolverine. What could have been a brief cameo instantly became one of the most talked about moments among fans. People loved the energy. They loved the confidence. They loved how different he felt compared to many recent superhero characters. The internet exploded with reactions, memes, quotes, and theories, and when audiences respond that strongly, studios pay attention. That is why the reports surrounding Gambit's future are so interesting. If Avengers Doomsday truly gives him a larger role, it could signal Marvel's willingness to embrace fan enthusiasm in a much bigger way. Gambit has always been a wild card. He operates according to his own rules. He is charming, unpredictable, and dangerous. In a story involving multiversal collapse, those qualities become incredibly valuable because wild cards often influence events in unexpected ways. The more I connect all these pieces, the clearer the picture becomes. Avengers Doomsday is not simply trying to deliver another epic crossover. It appears to be designed as a correction point, a narrative reset without erasing the past. Marvel seems determined to preserve everything audiences loved while creating a cleaner path forward. The returning legends reconnect viewers with the franchise's strongest era. The introduction of mutants opens the door to decades of fresh storytelling. Doctor Doom provides a central figure capable of unifying multiple plot lines. The multiverse crisis creates stakes large enough to justify massive character interactions. Even Gambit's growing importance reflects Marvel's renewed focus on audience engagement. Every element appears connected to a larger strategy. Instead of endlessly expanding outward, the MCU may finally be preparing to consolidate its many story threads into a single direction. That direction ultimately leads towards Secret Wars, Battleworld, and possibly a soft reboot that welcomes new viewers without discarding years of continuity. If Marvel succeeds, the result could be extraordinary. We may be witnessing the beginning of a second golden age. And that is why I think Avengers Doomsday could become one of the most important films Marvel has ever produced. It carries the weight of the past, the uncertainty of the present, and the promise of the future all at once. Maybe it will not recreate the exact feeling of Endgame, because moments like that happen only once. But perhaps it does not need to. Perhaps its real purpose is to remind audiences why they fell in love with this universe in the first place. A universe filled with heroes, impossible choices, emotional sacrifices, and stories that connect across generations. If the clues are pointing in the right direction, then Marvel's biggest comeback may already be underway.